Hello, everybody. We are waiting one more minute and then we're going to start. We're really happy that you're with us. Thank you for joining us tonight. And we look forward to talking all together. Okay, we are so happy that everybody's with us, and for all the people who are going to be joining us soon on live stream or on or watching the recording, we are also very happy that you're going to be able to get the information. And Riva and I are excited to be sitting together in the same room, even though I see this is not working so well, but hopefully you'll be able to see us really well. Welcome to everybody who's with us. We're really happy that you're joining us for this really important conversation, raising awareness to infant loss. And specifically, we want to be talking tonight about how others in the community can help when friends or loved ones are going through loss. For those who don't know me, I'm Naomi Martin Grummett. I'm the founder and director of the Eden Center. So just so you have a little bit of background, the Eden Center works to empower Jewish women and couples in their intimate lives and uses the mikvah as a platform to promote women's physical, spiritual, sexual, and emotional health across the life cycle. The Eden Center runs community programs, we create resources, and we provide professional training around mikvah and well-being from programs like tonight, which we're very happy to be hosting in cooperation with Nechama Comfort. In a minute, I'll give you an introduction to podcasts, regularly published blogs, printed resources such as breast cancer self-awareness posters for the mikvah, or Birkat Emunah, which is a resource that we have created in partnership with other organizations to support women and couples going through infertility or loss, and many, many more programs. Eden runs a unique mikvah attendant training course with an emphasis on sensitivity, and we run Kala and Chatan teacher trainings that provide knowledge both of halacha and of sexuality, communication, red flags, and a lot more. So if anybody is out there listening who wants to join one of these trainings, we have courses starting over Zoom after the Chagim, and we'd be thrilled to have you. I invite you to check out all the details on our website, www.theedencenter.com. All of Eden's programming is made possible through the generosity of our donors. So please consider making a donation to the Eden Center or to Nechama Comfort so that we can continue to run programs like this at no cost. On our website, it's www.theedencenter.com/donate. On Nechama Comfort,
it is nechamacomfort.org.
Great.
Very simple.
So tonight we're honored to have Riva Judas with us. Riva is the founder and director of Nechama Comfort, which works. Do you want to share what you do?
Yes. So thank you so much, Naomi. We did this 2 years ago. I can't believe 2 years have flown. It is wonderful to be in Israel with you on Israel time. And hopefully people from all over the world, the States, are able to watch it, because so many times we have to get up in the middle of the night to watch your programming, but it's worth it. It's worth it. So I am the founder and director of Nechama Comfort. We are a Jewish organization that is now global, and we work with the entire Jewish community, population, couples who are experiencing pregnancy, pregnancy loss, early miscarriage, infant loss, SIDS, stillbirth through the age of 1. And we have individual case managers that can work with the couple both together or on an individual basis. We can be reached through our hotline, our website, or on, you'll get all the information if you go to nechamacomfort.org, as well as we run a weekly support group for couples to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but 8 p.m. Israel Standard Time. So we are able to do that as well. We are a pregnancy after loss support group, as well as a monthly male support group run by a male trauma therapist. And we also, one of our other important missions is that we train as well. We train rabbis, rebbitzins, yoetzet halacha. We work with the entire Jewish community, from the unaffiliated through the Hasidic community. We train doctors, we go into hospitals, we train funeral directors. We also give a program to seniors in high schools, both boys and girls, how to develop resilience, how to deal with things when things don't go your way. And what we're doing a little bit tonight, sensitivity training, how to help your friends and family going through this difficult loss. But many of the things that we're going to talk about tonight can really be helpful dealing with anybody going through any difficult trauma. And just a little note, I've been here for a month in Israel visiting my in-laws, which has been amazing with my husband. But we have also worked hard. We're in the process of working with a partnership and a collaboration with some organizations in Israel, hopefully to create part of Nechama Comfort in Hebrew with case managers, with a hotline, with our trainings for our case managers. My voice is hoarse because we've been speaking in a lot of different communities, so stay tuned for more exciting news. We've been working together with Naomi and the Eden Center for a while, years ago already, so it's really beautiful to see how the collaboration continues. And tonight is my final presentation because unfortunately, or fortunately to see my family, I'm going back to the States. So this is great.
It is a real honor to have you, and it's fun
Thank
to
you.
get to work together and really
Yes,
to see the
in real
development
time.
and to be able to do different kinds of trainings. So the last time we were together, we talked about other types of things.
Yeah.
But tonight, I want us to focus on how to help people going through the journey of loss and miscarriage. And what I want to do, both of our organizations have the mission of helping people. For the Eden Center, it's very important because this is one of the common things in the life cycle, and which, thank God, is talked about more today, but it
Yes.
isn't always talked about. And loss is often something very private. But as a community, we all want to be able to help each other. So that for us, especially as women who reach out to other women, as mikveh is our place where so many things come forward. We'll talk about that more later. But can we start by talking about how common are pregnancy and infant loss, and like how many couples a year experience that?
Right. So the statistic is, even with medical advancement, the statistic is 1 in 4 pregnancies end in miscarriage. 1 in 8 pregnancies, unfortunately, end with a stillbirth. The numbers are really around the same around the world. Miscarriage, and the amount of weeks where we just determine a miscarriage or a stillbirth is different in different countries, but it's around, a miscarriage is usually between 2 and 15 weeks. Above that, so it's in the middle. 20 weeks and above is 22 weeks is average for it's a stillbirth. We've seen an increase in infant and pregnancy loss, really because of medical advancement. People know they're pregnant a day before they conceive. They know the gender at 12 weeks. So because of fertility treatments, fertility journeys, the attachment starts so much earlier, but so unfortunately do the losses.
I think that's true anyway, even if we're not on going through fertility treatments. I think just the fact that people are aware that they become pregnant so early, and for people who are practicing the laws of Nida, and when you go to the mikvah, and when you're expecting your period, and when it doesn't come, then right away, I think you begin planning, you begin thinking. And for many people, it didn't used to be that so early on they would know or realize.
Right. And also sharing the news. We all, my day, which was a while ago, we waited for 3 months, not just in the Jewish community, everywhere.
Yeah.
But now I can tell you, people are sharing the news much sooner, and it's not a stigma as much to talk about it. And I think because we're more open about talking about the mikvah, about Tari Mishpacha, family laws, where we never talked about it before. That helps families share the pregnancy news. And I think that's something to think about as well, especially even the gender. People really, if only the couple is knowing the gender, the attachment is really there so much earlier.
Those are interesting things in terms of people's awareness, and then what kind of sensitivity is needed, because there's already a sense of attachment and there's already a sense of, what does pregnancy mean? There's an actual
Right.
life. There's a person of, a baby with girl chromosomes or boy chromosomes, and it already makes you feel so much more attached. And obviously, I think if people are sharing with family or friends that they're having a baby, then that already is something. But why do we need to be sensitive in this? Like, okay, wait, so it's a 12-week loss.
Right. So I think for a couple of reasons. I think that anybody that has been pregnant, anybody that's gone through or gone through a loss, understand that the attachment starts way before you're pregnant. Before I did this full time. I'm doing this full time. I was a kindergarten teacher for many years. So we learned that attachment begins in preschool. We play in the bayit. You're the mom, you're the dad, 4 moms, 5 dads. We name our kids after the parsha or the, popular TV show, whatever it is. So already we started planning, and then going through our whole life, going, as we get older, picking our seminaries, dating, which we're not going to discuss tonight. That's not it. But all of that is all part of our structure of starting to nurture a baby. So before even the pregnancy test is positive, we're already thinking about the family we're going to have in very concrete terms. 2 girls, 2 boys, 2 years apart, when we want to have them, and there's going to be no problem. And when we see that pregnancy test, we're already planning, oh no, the baby, if it's a boy, the bar mitzvah is going to be Shabbos HaGadol. What are we going to do? Before you even get home from the doctor's appointment. So I think,
so true.
Yeah.
And, when it comes to mikvah also,
Yes,
people are already thinking, oh, I don't have to go to the mikvah again until.
exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And that's why mikvah, which we'll discuss a little later, becomes a difficult situation for many women, because you're already thinking, oh, not going to be here, see you tomorrow, see you next, won't see you for 9 months. So that's why, again, sensitivity is so important to the community and to the mikvah attendant, especially. So we it's interesting. We talked about before. It still happens, though, that people don't share the news right away. So what happens is, if we're not telling our family and close friends until, let's say, 2 or 3 months, then we have to make a call when there's a loss. So we have to say, we're pregnant, but we lost the baby in the one. So people are feeling that we should be more open about it. And I think it's helpful in the long run.
So what kind of things do you see people doing to cope with loss, or with the disappointment of having had a loss? What are the kinds of things that can help in doing it?
So one thing is to recognize that pregnancy, infant loss at any stage is a loss of a child of your hopes and dreams. So it's people we're human, either the older generation, or just the way we were brought up, or even the medical personnel. Doctors will treat it as a medical situation, but really it is a loss. It is a loss like any other loss. Like, you have to go through your grief journey, and that's what's important to understand. It's a unique loss because it's happening to 2 people at the same time, which you really have. You do, chas v'shalom, your parent dies, so you may have 2 siblings, but everybody has their different personality. And when it comes to pregnancy and loss, it's the same thing. It is 2 people who have different personalities, who grief and death may have been experienced or not beforehand. Many times it's young couples, their first time dealing with loss and grief. What else makes it unique is that there are no Jewish laws pertaining to a pregnancy, infant loss of a baby that lives for under 30 days. And that's really important to understand. There is nowhere written. We speak to Rebbeim and communities all across the world and all denominations of Judaism. And there really isn't anything written, which means it took my husband and I, our firstborn son, lived for 12 hours. His name is Pesach. And he was born on Pesach and passed away on Pesach 36 years ago. And of course, it was a different time in the world. But what bothered my husband and I for a while was that we held our baby, we saw him, we gave him a name, and we still didn't have Shiva, and we still didn't have Kaddish, Yisker. And it took us a while. And I think I came to an understanding that maybe God, in his somewhat wisdom and sympathy for this situation, that if we were given those laws, how much more difficult it would be. We would have to be forced sort of to obey them or not to follow them and feeling guilty. But a woman who had just delivered, etc., the emotional shock. But because we have no guidelines, we're sort of expected just to go home and go on with our lives. And we don't need Jewish laws to know that we're going through a grief journey, just like any other loss. And I was blessed with my grandparents. All four of my grandparents were at my wedding. And my mother, unfortunately, passed away a couple of years ago suddenly. So I really didn't deal with any type of loss except for my son. And I would always talk about that it's similar journeys, but I really was only basing it on talking to people. Now that I've gone through that, I know that the grief journey is the same. There are unique parts of it, and one of them is, how do people react to us? People in general do not like to deal with loss and death.
Right.
Going to Shiva visits, we know people write books on it. They give webinars on it. So how much more difficult is it for people to be, but we need the support.
I think what you're saying is so important, because basically what you're bringing out is when you lose a parent or when you lose a sibling, we have the ways in our community that we know we're supposed to go through certain stages, and there's a script that we go through, and we formally mark and publicly mark our sadness, our loss, our emotions by going through those stages. When it comes to infant loss, it's the opposite. There's nothing, there's no public expression. Oftentimes we're going through it when we haven't even shared. So there's what you said, there's almost this expectation that you're going to just get on with it. And it could be that at a different time when people had, children and the mortality rate was much higher and many babies died, and they didn't know so early, and they didn't know the gender at week 12, and they didn't have pregnancy tests that could show them, after conception plus,
right.
X number of days. They didn't have that. They didn't have that same struggle. But today we really feel it, and therefore the fact that it's not halachically bad. There's no the word in Hebrew is tekes, but there's no ritual around it.
Right.
Leaves us feeling even more bereft to a degree, because now what do we do, and how do we express it, and what does it mean?
So that's why we're here tonight. So, it's interesting when you say years ago, I'm talking about 1800s, late 1800s, early 1900s, so probably around the 1940s, 30s, when society was changing, people did discuss in Judaism, in our Jewish communities, babies that passed away. As much as, there was an increase of loss, there was maternal mortality. Mothers were passing away. But if you go to old Jewish cemeteries around the world, you will see matzevot, stones for babies that lived one day buried in these old Jewish cemeteries. My son is buried in a small Jewish cemetery in Pennsylvania. And there were babies there from the late 1800s, 1900s. I think that Judaism followed the way of the world, of the secular world, when, now I sound like a dinosaur, there was many years we didn't talk about anything. There were no months for recognition. There were no ribbons. There was no internet. There was no way to describe things. Some people remember growing up when our grandparents would whisper cancer. We didn't say it because if we said it, maybe we would get it. So I think that the Rebbeim and the Jewish community just followed the ways of the world. If we don't talk about it, you move on and you get through it. When our son passed away, we were told, don't go for therapy. You know why you're depressed. You're depressed because your son died. So don't wait, and that was these were professionals that told us. And there was really nobody to talk to. Just go home and get pregnant. And that's what we did. Our daughter Eliana was born a year later on Yom Ha'atzmaut. But of course we were depressed. And of course, I realized there was a need, and people would reach out to me and say, they'd call me on the phone and say, I had a loss, let's talk about it. But if we see each other in the streets, we're not even going to recognize it. Or they'd call me, my sister had a miscarriage, can you call her? And there really was nothing until actually 1988, President Ronald Reagan established the day, October 15th, as International Pregnancy, National, but now it's International Pregnancy Infant Loss Awareness Day. And October is Pregnancy Infant Loss Awareness Month. But it took a long time for people to recognize it. And I can say that, we started our organization in a very small. Now, as I told you, we're all over. And the shame has really subsided. However, we still have a lot more work to do. And that's what we want to talk about tonight. How you can help your friends, family members going through this difficult loss and understand that they want to talk about it. One other important point I want to mention is that because there is no guidebook, so to say, we don't tell people what to do. We just offer them the choices. And choices is a big word. I think we want them to know what they can do, what they have the choices of doing at any time of their life. We tell our couples when they call us, you've now joined the club you never wanted to join, but you're a lifetime member, because there's so many things that we realize and recognize happen when we don't recognize trauma. And I think because of, somebody just asked the question, why was there shame? Because we wanted to all fit in. And we didn't want to talk about things that may there's something wrong with me. There's something wrong with our family, going back to the dating. We want to fit into society. We don't want to, look different. Similarly to people that survivors of the Holocaust. Nobody talked about the Holocaust until Steven Spielberg made his movie. They wanted to fit into society. PTSD, people in the army, mental illness. People didn't talk. People felt shameful because that's how society made us feel. And I'm so glad that we're having these conversations and that we're able to have conversations. I think what helping also is people in the public eye, celebrities, athletes, people share their pregnancy and infant loss stories. I remember when my son was in high school, he would hear on the news, the sports channels, a football player would lose his baby. They'd have a miscarriage, and he'd say, Ema, can you call him up and help him? So I think, and I see that the generations are getting better, but we have to help.
So when you say that the people used to call you to say, could you call my sister? What are the kinds of things that we in the community can do? What does that conversation look like when you call somebody who's had a loss? How do you help them?
So we need to, first of all, when somebody has a loss, we have to recognize the loss. And just like with any grief journey, who in your community, who amongst your friends is going to be the point person that they're going to reach out and on behalf of the couple and say, we're here to help you. We understand what you're going through. So there's a few parts now. Now there is the between the loss and either the delivery or the procedure that has to be done, we do have a little bit of time. So people in their communities, the leaders of their communities, the rabbis, the rabbinites, have to be prepared beforehand to what are the what how are the logistics taken care of. Babies can be buried, should be buried, and couples should know where the babies are buried, and they have the choice to know. Now, and I know this is all over the world now and in Israel, and the Chevra Kadisha is aware that they will um, they will be called, they will be informed of the laws, and depending on your community, and I know it differs in different countries, but that's what we need to prepare right away. The leaders of the communities have to know what's available, who's available. And it is so important to the couple to know that their baby is taken care of. Even early miscarriages now, what the hospitals may call fetal demise, that those babies are properly buried. Now, again, there is no halacha. So there are no the halachot of the preparation, the hatarot, and having it done within 24 hours. Because there are no laws, the sometimes the couple is offered to have testing on the baby, to have the autopsy. That is all allowed. So, the logistics should be in place, and you could always reach out to Nechama Comfort because we have the experience, the knowledge, who to go to, how to help with these things. So that's the important thing. That's sort of the thing that has to unfortunately be discussed as soon as the couple hears what's going on, because the hospitals will want to know, etc. After that, people should understand and find out, do the couple want to share their news or not? Privacy versus public. Very important. And this is important with every situation, anybody going through any trauma. People want to help. People all mostly mean well, but sometimes everybody gathers when they hear of a crisis. You have to think about your level of friendship with that couple. So whoever the point person is, just find out, do they want people to call? Do they want people not to call? But as much as I love being in person or on Zoom, we do have texting and email and WhatsApp. Take advantage of that, because reach out and acknowledge their loss. I'm sorry for what you do.
That's a good wording. I'm sorry for what you've gone through. But let's say I just know somebody. I'm not close friends with them. Is it appropriate for me to write to them?
Again, you have to use your seichel. You have to use your judgment. I would not necessarily within the first week, but I would reach out at some point. If you know the person, it's not just to hear about the person, but if you know the person, all you have to say is, I'm so sorry for what you're going through. I'm so sorry. That's it. And you could say, you need to be specific. You could say to them, I'm available to talk. Let me know when's a good time for you. And then if the closer relationship, you want to talk on Tuesday morning. And if you offer that suggestion, and if you offer that, I'm going to do that, you better definitely be able to speak to that person, because that person will want to hear from you. So I think that, with all the thousands of couples we've spoken to over the years, people do not get upset with the friend or the community member that reached out. People do get upset, and friendships have dissolved because you never reached out. But just to say now, it's never too late. Sometimes, people will hear me speak and they'll say, oh, you know what? My sister-in-law had this loss 2 years ago. Reach out. Say, I was watching this tonight, and I want to reach out to you. I want to acknowledge your loss. So that's what's important. Don't judge. Don't judge. Don't say things like, I know what you're going through. even if you went through the exact same situation, you're not the same person. So, don't give advice like that. Don't give medical advice or legal advice. Don't say things. Um, we all live in a world now, as I said, technology. So we think we could fix everything. We have ways, we Google anything and everything. We just text and we can fix it. But this we can't fix. We cannot fix this. We just need to show up. And people may be afraid and don't. And I have to tell you, everyone's afraid, but we just need to be able to do that. If the couple wants to talk, if you're going to open a conversation, don't say, "How are you?" That's a difficult. You know how they are. They're miserable. How are you feeling this morning? And if you open it up to them, you need to be prepared to listen. If they, we give the couple the choice and we encourage them to give a baby a name, even an early loss, because to refer to them as the baby makes it difficult if you have other children, future children. And also, we're grieving the loss of this child. So it could be a name that you were planning on using. It could be a name that you want to share with you and your spouse or not. It's your choice. And more couples are definitely choosing to give the baby the name. And if the baby has a name and they share it with you, you have to be comfortable using it. Another point that I just mentioned, they, spouse. We can't forget the men. Men and women are different. We know that. And what's interesting, it's not the stereotypical psychological writings that we read about men and women now. It's really their personalities. Some men are more sensitive than the women. Sometimes men will reach out. We have to acknowledge their loss and their grief just as much as women. Exactly what we're doing.
100%. It's interesting because you were talking here about reaching out and acknowledging and saying, but I found also that when people have lost, sometimes it can be very helpful to offer something concrete.
Yes.
Like, I know you had a loss. I'm going to bring over dinner. Would you like melchet because of inflation?
Exactly. So the usual meal trains, carpools, that goes without saying. That, whoever is in charge, let's say the friend, the family, the rabbi, the rabbis, who's ever in charge of this situation, you discuss with the couple. The couple decides we want an email to go out, or we don't want anybody to know yet. And it's really so important. Our goal at Nechama Comfort is to make sure that nobody ever feels alone. And like I said before, that pregnancy and infant loss is so common, and people are talking about it even more. And I didn't mention one other thing that has made it more common too, and that people have to understand so that we're not judging. Because of medical advancement, people are given, quote unquote, the choice, and it's really not a choice, by their doctors to terminate the pregnancy, medical termination. I heard from a woman a few weeks ago that they're using the term in Israel, therapeutic termination. Nobody chooses to terminate, but we know because of doctors and testing, we could pinpoint with accuracy, unfortunately, chromosomal diseases, not only before the couple gets pregnant, especially if you're involved in fertility treatments. And because of that, the Rebbeim, Baruch Hashem, thank God, are learned and learn and give many more heterim and give the permission to terminate this baby. But understand, termination is just a medical term. So I think people are unfortunately going through this much more. And we have to, what we do with our group, our support group, for example, people who experience early miscarriage to the age of one come on, because we need, as our friends and family, to understand that these are the children of their hopes and dreams. So another thing to remember is the triggers. Just like we have a yort site, we have, we make a kiddush, or we make a shalashudis, and we do all these things. And I'll talk about in a second what we could do to remember the babies, but make a note to yourself too. maybe it was their due date. Due dates are very difficult. Birth dates are very difficult. Understand, um, when I was trained in a program in La Crosse, Wisconsin. They barely knew a Jew when I was there. They were so impressed with our whole system of Shiva. But they were surprised. I remember when I was trained as a pregnancy at the loss facilitator, they would talk about their holidays, Thanksgiving and Christmas and Easter. And I said, well, let me tell you about Judaism. In the fall, we have 10 what we call Thanksgivings in a row holidays that are coming up now, actually. And we have something called our Shabbat, which is again once a week. And it involves both social and emotional and spiritual components. So we're in a very interesting type of community. And we work, as I said, with all families, and even families that are not religious or that aren't practicing, they also feel the same way. They're in some type of community. So what they don't want to feel different. So what we encourage you is reach out to them, invite them for lunch, let's say on Shabbat, but don't invite them with 3 couples that are going to be discussing, in the States, we discuss the price of yeshiva tuition. I don't discuss, don't invite them with people in their 70s either.
Right.
Try to be a sensitivity. Understand if they don't show up. Understand if they say no, but keep inviting them.
I think that's so important also now, especially because we're going into a period of the Chagim, that people who are going through, I think infertility also, but pregnancy loss, it's really important to invite them, but it's really important if they say no, thank you, to accept that and to know that they're going to know what's good for them. And we need to be able to offer, but we also need to be able to hear no. Right. I don't want to talk about it. The fact that you offer doesn't mean that they have to share. The fact that you are opening the door for them doesn't mean that they're obligated to now tell you. And I think that's sometimes in our community, we forget that. I think that's very difficult for people because we have to be able to accept the no along with it. And we have to remember that for people who are going through loss, times of family gathering can be very, very difficult.
Yes. I'll get so many calls and they'll start off, my story is unique. My mother and my brother is going to have a baby tomorrow. And my sister is getting married next week. And so how many times? We all live in these communities. So the odds of these things happening are very high. My sister actually gave birth to her son 2 weeks after my son passed away. So it's not a unique story. And what we tell the couple, we tell them they have to take care of themselves. Most people are not selfish. We grow up, we're in loving homes and communities and giving, but this is a time to take care of yourself. And if you can't attend something, you have to be able to say, I'm not coming. It's interesting when couples will say to me that with a bris, so we offer as a school because we think that this may help them to get pregnant. You give them to carry in the baby, to be the kvater, and so many couples tell me, I just can't be another kvater. So what I tell the community is, ask them. If they say no, that's it. That's it. Yes, and don't give them the pressure.
I think, there's also, kvater is a very common thing that people want to do. In the mikveh world, there's actually, I don't know if you've heard about this, but now I've been hearing about it a lot. There's a skula to help women get pregnant, that a woman who has experienced loss or is going through infertility will go to the mikveh with a woman who is in her 9th month. The woman who's going for her 9th month will go to the mikveh in order to sort of invite the holiness into the birth process. And they do it together. Now, I actually think it's beautiful to have 2 women davening for each other, one davening that the other one will have an easy birth and everything should come out healthy, and the other davening and praying for the woman who has had a loss or is infertile to become pregnant and have a healthy baby also. But that being said, not everybody wants it. very difficult. Not everybody wants to be asked, and not everybody thinks that this is going to be what brings them their salvation. And I think it's really important to be aware of that.
Yeah, so we've been hearing about it for a while, and what I tell the couple is the women, I've heard everything. I've heard stories what people did and didn't do to get pregnant, my own story. Uh, and again, it's so important for choices. And if you believe in what you're doing, as long you're not harming yourself or your baby, uh, in the woman in their ninth month, then, and if you have a friend that's going to talk about it, I used to have women, they don't anymore, baby. They would call me up and they'd say, I'm 9 months pregnant. Do you have anybody that wants to come to the mikveh with me? And I would say, that's difficult for me to answer because I can't post it. It's such a sensitive thing. But if you know somebody, you know, be sensitive to how you can approach it with the, and again, if they embrace it, wonderful. But if they don't embrace it, it's also wonderful because a skula is a beautiful thing, but we really don't know what it means. It has to be so, davening and Tehillim and all these things, but nobody has gone up and come back down to tell us really how it helps. So it has to be something that talks to you. And we had discussed, in terms of the mikveh that, like I said, we work with all Jewish women. Um, just the feeling of mikveh, people that aren't religious, that have heard about maybe the mikveh, or maybe they went down, to the mikveh before they got married, and that was it. And they hear in the support group about they want to come and embrace this. Where women who are religious, it becomes a difficult situation, the mikveh. So it's a discussion. It has to be really a discussion. And, that also when you do trainings, we do trainings about specifically the Chama comfort and for pregnancy loss to mikveh attendants. Because, I think the mikveh woman has changed over my years of what it was like, the mikveh attendant. But I think that they need to be sensitive too. I know that for, I'm talking a while ago, before there was Mirkaz Eden, before Chama Comfort, before, you had your college class and that was it. And you didn't even talk about things with your mother. It's so different now. And so then let's say they knew about the loss. They would say to the woman, they'd give them a bracha and say Tehillim with them. And the woman would call me up crying because that's not what they want at that point. But yet there are women that do want that, so we always say, give them some extra time, give them a chance, be understanding. And I think that's where the friend and the community leader, the Rebbitzin, can be in touch with the mikveh. So we get in touch with the mikveh attendant too, to be able just to be sensitive to their needs. And one thing also that's important to know, if you feel like you said the wrong thing, or if your friend, the person who gets upset with you, they're not upset with you. It's such a difficult, stressful time, their grief journey. Don't take it personally, and give them the space. You'll visit that situation again, and you'll talk about it again. Another thing that comes up is, what if I'm pregnant? What if I'm pregnant on the mikveh attendant or the Rebbe? So again, they're not jealous per se of you and your pregnancy. They want their baby, and we don't know what's going to happen. So don't stay away, but be sensitive.
Yeah, I think, you've mentioned choice a lot of times. And I think that in all these places, right, letting people have the feeling that you are respecting them and that you want to hear and see what they're going through and allow them the choice. And I think we mentioned before, Birkat Emunah is a booklet that we have created, and we worked on it together a lot, to support women and couples who are going through pregnancy and infant loss, infertility. And there's a whole list of what things we could do in the mikveh to make it more meaningful, to mark a loss, to have, mikveh be part of the process and a space that I can choose to bring myself, or that I can, have help going through. But I also, in the last edition, we added a piece for husbands, which I thought was
Yes.
very, very beautiful, including something, this spoke to me, and it probably doesn't speak to everybody, but when a woman goes to the mikveh, it's an auspicious time for davening. It could be a very difficult time, but it is still a time that, you are able to daven. And we included a part for husbands to also use that time, to daven for their family, to daven for what will be, in their connection, a neshama that could come out. And I think recognizing that the mikveh could be used for that,
Yeah.
and opening that up to both partners of the couple is so important. And again, as you said before, recognizing the husband's part in that.
Yeah. And the communication, because we said everybody's unique, there are stages of grief. They're not linear at all anymore. And you could be on the same page of your stage, you could be in the same stage or completely different. But you and your spouse need to have communication and respect each other. And that's the most important. I love that you added the special tefillah for the men. It's so, so important. And we should also be sensitive, as I said, all the components. One of them is spirituality. So some people, after their loss, become more spiritual. Rituals become so important, to the fact sometimes that it's the way that they grieve. They may be davening the entire day. They may be overly doing rituals. And you may be, I'm not coming to shul. I'm mad at God. I'm never going to go back into shul again. And that's okay. We tell our clients, God has a lot on his plate, a lot. He's not just looking at you, and you're human. You could be angry at God. I remember I once had a woman, she called me from her car. She was in the car. I spoke to her for 45 minutes before she entered the mikveh.
Wow.
And I said, we talked about it. I said, what, if you don't want to go, don't go. And she said, but if I don't go, then maybe I'll be punished again. And I said, it's hard for you to understand this because we think we're punished, but we really don't understand. We don't get tested from God. We don't understand punishments, but I understand that you feel like that. And then she said, well, if I don't go, I'll go. So I said, you know what? Let's look at the mikveh now. That is your wonderful place to be. But it's like eating an apple. You're going to eat the apple, go to the mikveh, and come out of the mikveh. And I think that, she heard me and she said, what? And it was sort of giving her permission. So if we could give our friends, and she called me up and she goes, it was wonderful. So we have to be understanding if they're not going to shul, if they're not davening, if they don't want to. And I'm talking about, and men, we see more of this than women, and we have, if they're not, participating in rituals, public rituals or personal, they have to go back. Most of the time, if they believe, it will come back to them. But we have to be understanding and not judgmental. And because, when a parent passes away, we have a year of availability.
Yes.
And even that's not enough. So we offer the couple, again, the choices. And I think this helps them to be part of society that we should respect. They want to light a Shabbos candle for the baby. Nobody, you have to light 2 candles. That's it. Everything else is what you want. You want to say Kaddish, Yisker. People have jewelry. I have my son's name on my bracelet here with my grandchildren. People plant things. If you look at our website, we have a lot of ideas for memorials. I mean, I went specifically with my husband yesterday to the zoo. I don't know if you know this month, and it was 200 degrees. And I said, we are finding this rock. And you could look at our website. I do a whole little piece about it. So there's a rock, a beautiful stone next to the panda exhibit with 2 benches under trees in memory of the babies, the rainbow that lived in our hopes and dreams. And I read about this a couple of years ago and I was determined to come. It's beautiful. And I say, you're amongst the animals, creatures, giving birth. You're amongst children and families. It was crowded Chofesh yesterday, but here we took the time and the moment. And I think in October they do have a program there.
Yes, and they have a ceremony where
They have a ceremony and they plant
trees.
things.
Yeah.
So another little point, just to say, we
There's a-
don't know.
There's a whole list in Birkat Emunah of things that also can be
Yeah,
done.
yeah.
And I invite anybody, Riva has in her office copies of Birkat Emunah.
Yes.
We have on our website copies of Birkat Emunah, and there's a whole lot of things that are in there that can be done at the mikvah or out of the mikvah to mark and to really think.
Yeah, and I
how
think in
to-
combination and for men and women, that helps us feel not alone and accepted. And it's never too late. You know, when I did a program a few years ago during COVID, a woman in Israel who was turning 70 reached out, and she had never discussed with her family and friends about her losses that she had in 1978.
Wow.
So if anybody, it's never too late. People have been reaching out to me for the last month to do something to remember your baby, to find out where your baby is buried, to create some type of memorial, to help. Sometimes that helps. So, and it's never too late, as I said before, to acknowledge the losses, and that's what's so important too.
Amazing. I want to just invite, if anybody has any questions, you can write them in the chat that Riva or I could relate to, but I just want to review a few of the things that we've said as important points for things that you could do yourself or that you could do to help somebody. And I think in the community context, especially the parents and siblings, what are the things that I want to just sort of, what I heard you say was, one is open the opportunity for a friend or a child or a sibling or a couple to share and ask if they want to share, but also give permission for them to say no. And know what's going on so that you can offer them help, but that you can accept if they don't. The second thing I heard you say is to give practical help. And don't just offer, but actually bring something over, take food, take them to a meal, take them to a movie, or drive somebody to the mikvah, take them to a doctor's appointment. You could do so many different things. And I want to say that also, I think it's important to say that I care about you and acknowledge that
I'm sorry for what you're going through.
I'm sorry. Recognize that every person is going through their own journey. And don't impose what you feel or you felt, even on your spouse. I think we didn't make that explicit, but I think that it's really important that you just know that everybody has their own journey. And I think another
communication between the two of you is very important.
And I think that we didn't talk about this before, but I want to bring out that I think it's okay even for people to check in with somebody like a month later, because everybody offers to help in the first week, when
definitely.
they first hear something.
Definitely a month later, a few months later, their due date, anniversary, your site, anytime. And just to let you know, on our website, we have our list of do's and don'ts listed for everybody to share. Just one more thing when you mentioned siblings, and I wanted to just say quickly that it's important to share with your children. If you have living children, when you go through this loss, discuss with them on their level what has happened. So it's an important discussion. And in my case, our children were born afterwards. And they always knew when it was age appropriate about their brother. We take them to the cemetery. They're older now. I have 4 living children. We also had 6 miscarriages as well that I didn't even discuss tonight. And we have 8 grandchildren. And my 2 older grandchildren, 8 and 10 years, 12 and 10 years old, know about Pesach, about our son. So it's important to establish in your family, just talking about grief, loss. Is it God? Is it Shemayim? Is it Mashiach? Whatever works. Don't be afraid to share with our children. Remember, our children is coming up. Parsha stories. Noach destroyed the world. We talk about Haman. We talk about things. We talk about how Abraham davened in sorrow for a child. So they know it. They're getting it. So it's so important. And there are books and things to always be open. It's never good to have a secret. So open communication with your family and friends. be sympathetic, understanding, and to know that you are not alone, the couple going through the loss, and the community. You could reach out uh, to Naomi at Miracles Eden, reach out to Art. You can find our information. Our hotline now is only on Eastern Standard Time, but I don't sleep much. So you could reach out and
That's how
and we
you have
could,
your voice.
yes. So,
But definitely, I think it is so important, and I think also, do you have, if you would wrap up with like one thing to say to parents about how they can help their children who are going through a loss? Um,
is to, again, being a grandparent is very difficult. I just said I have 8 grandchildren. We're not old bubbies anymore. It is another thing. We speak to the entire family. You can reach out. The client is the couple, but we will work with the grandparents, the siblings of the couple, etc. So it's difficult because they want to help their children. You want to help them. You want to fix it. You can't fix it. You just need to show up and say, I'm here for you. Listen. In the beginning, ask if there's any logistics, concrete things that you could do with the help of them, the burial, etc. Make sure that, the woman who delivered the baby is being physically taken care of. And I know a lot of us live long distance from our kids and it's difficult. So communicate with them. Don't be judgmental. I know things were different when you were growing up, your grandparents are growing up, people are going to suggest things. You just need to show them that you care. And that's the most important thing.
That's amazing advice. That's really great. So everybody who is on, I want to just sort of invest you with a couple other things before we end. The first is that we all know somebody who suffered a miscarriage or is going through infertility, and use the things that you learned here to help others. Don't just keep it for yourself, but if you're going through or have gone through a loss, then please take these things to heart. But your friends, your siblings, your children, please make sure that you do use these and put them into effect. But in addition, share 2 things that you've learned here tonight with 2 other people. The 2x2 rule. Noah's Ark takes us a long way, because if you discuss at your Shabbat table or you write a social media post of something practical that can be done to help somebody, or something that would help you get through the time of a miscarriage, or did help you get through the time of miscarriage or stillbirth or any other kind of infant loss, then other people will also learn, and that's very helpful. I charge you to learn more about both of our organizations and how we can support you when you're going through different things during the life cycle. And lastly, Birkat Emunah is here to support women and couples and greater families who are experiencing loss or infertility. You can order a copy on our website, www.theedencenter.com. You can pick up one in Hama Comfort, and help us make connections to get it into more communities. We're looking for sponsors for the next printing. We have other individuals who we want to make a dedicated version for South Africa, because as things go global, we know that there are Jewish communities all over the world. We would love your help.
And I just want, thank you. And I want to just mention also that all of our services to our clients are free of charge. So nobody should, I know every medical system is different in the countries and things, but reach out to us. We do, we work through fundraising and donations, but we will never turn a couple away, ever. Our case managers and our support groups. And to get any more information, come on our website. I'm here till Saturday night to call me. I want to thank you so much, Naomi, for doing this again. We really try to do joint programming because, it's a little difficult with the hours. But for you that are in Israel, we are going to be really launching programs in Hebrew. As I said, we are global. We're in every continent now except Antarctica. Somebody told me, because Chabad is not in Antarctica yet. So that is it. but we really, I look forward to continuing our partnership. And the real goal is to help all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here and have a good night.